Okay, hello, this is Marietta Paxson here with Little Dreamers, and this is your Q&A. So I'm here to answer your questions, and we're going to talk a little bit about sickness and what to do with your babies when they're sick so that you can preserve their sleep for later on. And I'm sorry, I am so almost over my cold, but I still have a little frog in my throat, so bear with me. Okay, so to start off, tomorrow I will be posting a link to my latest blog post that is all about preserving sleep when your child is sick. So I'm going to kind of talk about that a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and answer a question submitted by Danny Allen, who is a previous client of mine, and her question goes right along with the blog, so I'll go ahead and answer her question while I explain, just kind of highlight some of the points of the blog, and then you'll want to check it out tomorrow for sure, because I feel like when you write things, you can explain them better, as opposed to when I'm just talking to myself. It's a little bit harder. So, hello, Brianna. Okay, great. I have your question. I know I do. So we'll get to that. Okay, so let me read Danny's question. She's an 11-month-old, and she says, he's had the flu. He's been up frequently in the middle of the night. Now he's getting better, but refusing to sleep. Typically he goes down for first nap at 10, the least resistant, and then again at 2, then down for bed at 7. I know he is hungry because of the lack of eating and keeping things down, so that makes it difficult. What else can I do? I feel so bad to leave him crying when I know he doesn't feel well. So, yes. Okay, so these are my tips for sickness, Danny. This should really help you. One, when your child is sick, don't be afraid to comfort them. Like, it's okay to go in at night, or, I always say naps are tricky because naps during the day are tricky, but don't be afraid to comfort your child. Help them feel better. That's perfectly appropriate. The trick here is that comforting your child and soothing your child to sleep are two different things. So we want to go in and comfort. We want to help them feel better. We can rock them. We can, emotionally comfort them. We can physically comfort them by helping them when they're sick. But then we want to allow them to lay down awake and go to sleep. And I should clarify that these are suggestions for babies who have already been sleep trained. And disclaimer is I'm not a doctor, so these are all sleep-related suggestions that you can always clear through your pediatrician for safety. Okay, my number 2 tip to remember when your child is sick is fussing is okay. I know that they're sick and it's hard to watch them suffer, but it's okay if they fuss a little bit. It's perfectly normal, and it's very expected when they're sick. When my kids are sick, they're waking up more frequently at night. And yes, there's a part of me that wants to run right in and take care of him and make sure everything's okay. But there's also a part of me that says, okay, they're uncomfortable and they're figuring it out. Let's see if they can figure out how to feel better before I run in and fix everything for them. Now, obviously, this needs to be taken with a grain of salt. If your child's throwing up, yes, I run right in because I want to catch them throw up before it winds up all over their bed. But it's okay to let them fuss. Even though they're sick, a child can still fuss. Okay, number 3, make sure you loosen your schedule. A child who's sick needs a lot of extra sleep, or they could fall on the line of their sickness is kind of preventing them from sleeping, and so they're not going to sleep as well or as much. But just loosen it up. I mean, if they're sleeping in, let them sleep in. That extra sleep is going to help them heal and recover. I just read the most interesting article. I'm planning on sharing it soon, but it talks about what our body does when we're sleeping, and this is all like cutting edge research that we had no idea was going on in our bodies, but it talks about how sleep allows our brains to filter out toxicity. It's so interesting. So you'll have to look for that and read it, but they need that extra sleep to help. So keep that in mind. And then my 4th tip is what I call the 3-day rule. So you've probably had your kids sick where they are falling asleep anywhere, everywhere, all the time. I know last year we had it, and my kids were sleeping so much. They were falling asleep in my arms. I wasn't even trying to soothe them to sleep. We were just all sick, and everybody was sleeping everywhere all the time. So my 3-day rule is that if your child is sick enough that they are either falling asleep so easily that it's like you're soothing them to sleep, they're falling asleep while you're nursing or holding them, or perhaps they're falling asleep or they're not sleeping as well, and so you are soothing them to sleep. You get to a point where comforting just isn't working and you do need to soothe them to sleep. That's okay too when they're sick, but follow the 3-day rule. Help them for 2 days and then make sure that on the 3rd day they get to do it themselves again. So again, comfort them and then allow them to fall asleep on their own. By following the 3-day rule, you're preventing that sickness from turning your sleep into a habit where they can't sleep anymore because of the sickness and they constantly need your help to sleep. So that's a good rule of thumb if you are helping them to soothe to sleep. And then my 5th tip is to jump back into your routine and be consistent just as soon as you can. As soon as you see that your child is feeling a little bit better, like I said, that 3rd day, jump back in and then expect some resistance. Like, yeah, it's always nicer to have help, right? Help is nice. So expect some resistance when you're allowing them to do it again on their own. It shouldn't be as bad as when you initially sleep trained them, but expect some resistance that it will take them. They're going to fight it. They're going to be like, no, I'd rather you rock me to sleep. That was more fun. And we're going to say, I know, it was nice. I'll rock you for 2 minutes and then I'm going to lay you down and you have to go to sleep. And then my final tip is to follow your gut. There's nothing more powerful than your mother's intuition, so follow that. And in my article, I talk a little bit about the difference between that intuition and our anxiety. Our anxiety is often rooted in lies and insecurity, and our intuition is rooted in our intuition and truth. Did I just say our intuition is rooted in intuition? Hi, that's not what I meant to say. Our gut is rooted in our intuition and our truth. So we want to make sure we're following our gut and being able to distinguish between the two, because anxiety it's not helpful. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help your baby. It doesn't help you. But our gut really can be powerful. So look for that. I'll post it tomorrow. So look for that blog. Go read it, and you can get a little bit more information and clarity on all of those tips. But those are great tips to get you through the sick season. Okay, so let's jump right in. I'm going to go ahead and answer these questions in the order that they are received, and hopefully I can get through them all. We'll see. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with Lisa Hall. And she says, my son is almost 3 months old, adjusted age because he was born 3.5 weeks early. I recently started putting him to bed between 6:37 and he wakes up between 6 and 7. His naps are around 8, 10, 12, 2, and 4. If I hold him, we usually sleep for an hour. He takes good naps for the first 3, but his last 2 naps are usually 30 minutes or less. To compensate, I try to get him in bed by 6. So far, it isn't working. Oh no, he is sleeping fine when he goes down at night, 6 to 8 hour stretches, but his naps are getting progressively worse. Well, you don't say worse, but I think that's a typo. I think you mean worse. I start getting him to wind down after being awake for about 50 minutes. But in the last week, he started fighting naps like crazy. I'm spending 10 to 30 minutes getting him to sleep. By the 4th nap, he fights going down to sleep like crazy and wakes after a few minutes. Okay, is this just the 4-month sleep regression? It could very well be. It sounds a lot like the 4-month sleep regression. But what you can do, I would get him down to about 4 naps. So I think you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would get him down to about 4 naps and maybe lengthen out his wake periods a little bit more. He might be fighting it so much because 50 minutes is kind of short. I don't know how long it's been taking him to wind down. But maybe just lengthen it by 10 minutes or something, because I don't think it's too long. Based off of what you told me, Lisa, I don't think it's too long of a wake period. So I try lengthening it maybe 10 minutes and then getting him settled. Your hour-long naps are great, and that 30-minute nap at the end is also right on track. So you're doing really good with that, and then February 7th will come before you know it. You're very close, and so yeah, that's what I would suggest doing. Okay, let's go to Tiffany Redmond. And Tiffany says, my son is 6 months old. He'll be 7 months on the 7th. Right now, we have a bedtime of 6:37 to 6:37 in the morning, with lots of waking up in the middle of the night. He wakes up, nurses a few minutes, and falls back asleep. Naps are 1 to 2 hours at 9 and 2. I really want to start sleep training, but I'm not sure how to break the habit of nursing as a sleep aid. How do I know if he needs to eat? Okay, so let me stop you right there and say, yes, you need to sleep train. That's what's going on here. And it's hard to break the habit of nursing other than you just have to do it. You can feed him before your bedtime routine, so you're ending that feed about 30 minutes before he goes to sleep, and then get a really good bedtime routine, and then Make sure you're laying him down happy and alert before you want him to fall asleep, about 15 minutes before you want him to fall asleep. And then from there, you can choose whatever sleep training method you want. And I am working on a blog to highlight my favorite sleep training methods and kind of explain those. So hopefully we can get that out soon. But yes, you're going to do whatever training method, whether that's cry it out and you walk out of the room and let him fall asleep, whether it's checks, whether it's staying in the room with him, whether it's pick up, put down, whatever method you're choosing, to just be consistent with that. And he will eventually fall asleep, and that will be the beginning of him learning how to sleep. And Tiffany, you would be perfect. I have 2 different sleep training packages. One of them is a do-it-yourself with help. Let me explain that. You get a generalized sleep plan. It outlines everything for you. You choose your sleep training method. You choose your age. It outlines everything for you. And then you get 4 or 5. I need to look because I'm still trying to figure out how I want to do that. But you get 15-minute calls with me where you get to check in with me and ask questions and kind of be guided through it without having kind of one-on-one help, if that makes sense. So that package is $199 right now. And so it gives you help for 2 weeks with your generalized plan that is outlining everything that you need. The next step up is 2 weeks of support with a personalized plan and an hour consultation. So you get unlimited texts, emails, phone calls for 2 weeks, and that one's $399. So if you're interested in that, shoot me a message. It would be perfect for where you're at and what you need. Oh, Chantel, you're so sweet. You are so good at this. I'm always so impressed with you. Thanks, Chantel. Way to boost my self-esteem during these videos because I feel so silly just talking to myself. Okay, yes, so there's no easy way to stop nursing. Nurse before you put him to bed, and then you've just got to be consistent with your sleep training method. How do I know if he needs to eat at night or if he's just wanting to nurse for comfort? Ask your pediatrician how often he needs to eat at night. At 7 months, I don't recommend more than 1 feeding, sometimes 2 if they're close to dropping one. But you'll just want to ask your pediatrician because right now, he doesn't even know what he wants because he's so used to nursing. Him meaning your baby, not your pediatrician. I feel like if I can figure that part out, sleep training will be a lot easier. Is this a good schedule for him? I'm worried that he is not getting enough sleep during the day also. Yeah, your schedule looks pretty good. The only thing that I would maybe suggest doing is usually when I am doing no, that's pretty good. Usually when I do the 2 naps, I do like a 9 and 1:30. But if it's a 2-hour nap in the morning, or depending how long it is, and if he's doing okay, then I would say your schedule looks pretty good. Okay, so let's go to Nicole Moomie. Again, I'm awful at names, so I'm sorry, you guys. She has a 4-month-old, 1-week-old, and he used to fall asleep around 11:30 p.m. and wake up at 4 a.m. for a feeding, then fall back asleep until 7:38, which is fine with me. But now he goes to bed in an unpredictable time between 8:30 and 10:30. Sometimes I'll feed him at 8:30. He stays awake for an hour and gets fussy, so I put him down for a nap and he doesn't wake up. Okay, I'm assuming you mean at night. You put him down at 8:30 for a nap and he doesn't wake up. Okay. And then he wakes up at 1 to 2:30, again at between 4 and 5, and then wakes up at 7:30 but isn't hungry, so I try to just put his pacifier in. He usually falls asleep off and on until 8:30 when I turn the lights and feed him. We swaddle him, give him a pacifier, and play white noise for bedtime and nap time. I normally follow the eat-wake-sleep cycle. Recently, past 2 weeks, he'll wake up way early from naps and won't fall back asleep and isn't hungry, so then I end up just letting him stay up and then feed him when he gets hungry, and then he doesn't stay up as long. Okay, then the cycle happens over and over again. For his morning feeding, I turn on the lights, feed him, and let him stay awake for as long as he wants until he gets fussy. Normally 45 minutes from the beginning of his feeding, and then he falls asleep without a fuss. Then he'll wake up 30 minutes later, which isn't super long, right? Not hungry and won't sleep. He sleeps in his own room and crib. We started introducing rice cereal and kind of skipping over some things. Throughout the day, he doesn't eat very well. Sometimes as short as 3 minutes, others as long as 7. And that's really not super indicative of nursing. I mean, you can have a baby that nurses for 5 minutes and they're getting a ton of food. So I wouldn't worry so much about that. It's not indicative of how much he's getting. Stay awake for 1 to 2 hours and go down for a nap without a fuss, but then we'll wake up 45 minutes later. Okay, so it sounds like what you're experiencing, Nicole, is a 4-month sleep regression. That 45 minute nap is exactly what it looks like. So you may be interested in sleep training, and that would include taking away the binky and the swaddle so that he can self-soothe and learn to transition from one sleep cycle to the next without waking up. Again, you can look at my packages. I've got the $199 or a $399 package. The $199 package is a do-it-yourself with some guidance from me, along with a sleep training plan so you know exactly what you're supposed to do. The $399 one is, I'm walking your hand through this. We're doing this together. You have almost 24/7 support from me, helping, guiding, supporting, all of that. So either of those would be perfect for you. The other thing that I would suggest is your schedule. A typical wake time for babies, the most ideal wake time for babies is between 6 and 8 a.m. So it sounds like your baby's sleeping in, which is great. If you have a baby that sleeps until 8, then you can do 8 o'clock as a wake up. But your baby is probably going to be on about 4 naps a day, and then bedtime is actually going to be between 6 and 8 p.m. And so he is going to bed super late, and that's probably increasing night wakings and not helping a ton. So I would do bedtime a lot earlier. That's why that last nap is turning into bedtime, because he's just ready to go to bed. So I put him to bed earlier. The other thing is, because he's going to be going to bed so much earlier, that's going to mess up feedings. And at 4 months, I like to see 2 feedings, one happening around midnight and one happening around 4 a.m. You'll want to talk to your pediatrician and see how long your baby can go at night and when they need to eat. But an earlier bedtime, yes, it could mean more wakings at night to feed, but your baby's going to be getting the sleep that they need, so their naps will be better, which will also make nighttime sleep better, which will make it easier to drop feedings when he's ready. Okay, so let's go over to Brenda Locke, and she says, what do you know about microprenees? My twins spent 4 months in the NICU and were born at 27 weeks. We are not the traditional new family. Okay, yeah, so here's the deal, Brenda. I will just calculate your babies, not from the day they were born, but from their due date. So say they were due January 2nd, right? Now they could be born December 1st or November 1st, right? But I'm not counting any of that. They will be 0 on January 2nd. And then in 4 months from January 2nd is when you can sleep train, right? So February 1st would be like a 1-month-old, even though your baby may be 4 months old from birth. Does that make sense? That's how you want to change things for a preemie. Okay. And then let's go down to Chantel, and I saw that she's already here right now, so that's fun. When you're here, sometimes if I have questions, I can ask them. So, okay, she says she's asking for help with her 3-year-old. She says he started waking up multiple times a night, wandering the halls until he can find me. Oh, Chantel, I think I read your question. Chantel's an old friend of mine from college, and she's just amazing. And I think when I saw that you submitted a question, I read it already. So I'm going to jump to your schedule. He used to fall asleep while okay, but he will fall asleep. Sorry, I'm trying to get down. He won't. Okay, this is the key, guys. Listen to this. She's got a 3-year-old, and then she says he won't nap during the day anymore, but he's terribly grumpy. He usually wakes up between 6:30 and 7:30. If he wakes up at 6, I go lay by him, and he will go back to sleep until 7:30. If he wakes up after 6:30, he's up for the day. Okay, and then Chantel, do you tell me what time bedtime is? Austin goes to sleep about 7. Okay, so here's the problem right here. He's waking up at sometime between 6:30 and 7:30. I'm just going to go ahead and say 7 as like a happy medium, okay? And then he's going to bed at 7. Now, he's 3 years old, so if you want to drop that nap, you can. He might still need it. I'm not necessarily recommending dropping that nap because it does sound like he needs it. Sorry, Chantal, I was just reading your question. You're so nice and also not amazing because I can't get my little guy to sleep. No, you're amazing in a lot of ways, trust me. Okay, so I'm not necessarily recommending dropping that nap because he may still need it. So my rule there is I would do quiet time for at least an hour and see if you can get him to fall asleep. If he doesn't fall asleep, you have to move bedtime up, like to 6, which I know feels really early, but what's happening right now is when he's not getting that nap, it's like a mess. Like transitioning from 1 nap to 0 is a mess. And so what's happening is he's just not getting enough sleep, and he might take a nap and then get like a late night and then get an early morning and then take a nap and then go to bed. Like there's a million different scenarios that's going on right here. But the bottom line is those frequent night wakings are most likely related to a child who's going to bed too late because he either didn't get a nap and is going to bed at his regular time, or he did get a nap and he's going to bed really late because the nap is too long, if that makes sense. So I realized that you said, and I didn't read this part of the question, so let me go back and read it. He's wandering the halls until he can find me because she's often in her baby's room helping her baby sleep, and then refusing any help other than me coming to lay by him until he falls asleep again. He won't let my husband comfort him. Okay, and I've had kids do this, so I get it. He also won't let your husband comfort him because he knows that if he fusses or cries long enough, then he gets mom. And I get that he's tired and he just wants mom. But what if mom weren't there? Like, what would happen? And you are there, I get that, but what if you weren't? And then he'd have to figure something out. Dad would have to figure something out, right? I'm not saying that's necessarily the answer because, again, I'd rather him sleeping altogether, but all night long. But when we're rewarding their behavior at night with something like laying next to them or patting them or getting them something to drink, it gives them zero reason to stop doing it. So he cries and screams and won't relent until I lay by him and wait until he's fallen asleep. And so that's the thing. If we continue to lay by him, then chances are he'll continue to wake because he's getting what he wants from that. He's getting that reassurance. I'm just starting to go back and forth between him and my baby, and I'm not even sleeping in my own bed anymore. Yeah, so the first thing I would try is adjusting his schedule so that he's going to bed early and getting enough sleep. Make sure that you are not falling asleep with him at the beginning of the night laying next to him. So you can do that slow, you can do that fast, however you want to do it. Make sure you're not falling asleep next to him. And then he's old enough that I would probably try to do some rewards, a chart of if you stay in your bed all night, type things to help him be motivated to stay in his bed. And then I would do a big old thing about how you sleep in your bed, I sleep in my bed, a big old family time of this is the new plan, and make sure he's aware of it, and you have a chart and just have everything ready. So Chantel, if you want more like one-on-one help and walking you through that and figuring that out, let me know. I am putting together a toddler stay in their bed package right now. So I don't have the price ready for you for that, but if you are interested in that, just PM me. But hopefully that gives you some ideas of what can help and what direction to go. Okay, so let's move on to Brianna Montgomery. Oh, and Brianna, that's who I saw here. I saw your name earlier, so. Okay. She says, my son has never slept through the night. We tried, and he's 1 year old. So we tried cried out method. He threw up 3 nights in a row. Oh, that really is one of the hardest things, the throwing up. It is the hardest thing. I have laid at the foot of the guest bed in his room with my arms through the bars of his crib, rubbing his head to get him to go to sleep and go back to sleep. But he will only fall asleep for 20 to 30 minute intervals. Ugh. I can lay him down for naps and bed with him awake as long as he's tired. He goes to bed at 8. Okay, so Brianna, that's probably part of your problem is that you're laying him down when he's tired. And he may need to be laid down completely awake so that he can fall asleep completely on his own, if that makes sense. Okay, so let me finish reading and I'll see what else I can offer you. He goes to bed at 8 and wakes up at 12-ish and 4-ish. I used to come nurse him for 5 minutes laying back down and he would eat. I stopped nursing last week, so now when he wakes up the first time I give him a binky and rock him to calm him down and lay him back down. And so again, if you didn't hear like my sickness tips at the beginning, right? I'm totally fine if you want to go get your kid and rock him, but just make sure that when you lay him down, he's awake again, okay? And then at 4, I feed him a bottle, which I would bet your pediatrician would say that he doesn't need to eat at night. So if I feed him, he will sleep until 8 or 9. If I don't, he's up every hour until I give in at 6 or 7. He takes 1 to 3 naps. What time did you say was bedtime? He goes to bed at 8, and so you're getting him to sleep until 8 or 9. Okay. He takes 1 to 3 naps a day, and his last nap ends at 4 p.m. Okay, so at 1 year old, he should be on a 2-nap schedule. He may be getting too much daytime sleep, and that could interfere with that early morning sleep. That may be part of what's going on there. I just don't know how to get him to sleep through the night or self-soothe the night. We want to move into a room with a 3-year-old brother, but if he's not sleeping through the night, okay, yeah, you won't be able to do that. Okay, so I realized you tried Cry It Out, and he threw up 3 times. There are ways around that. Like, you don't have to do Cry It Out. You don't have to. There are other methods, but sleep training is going to have to be a number one thing. Like, none of these other things are going to be able to be worked out unless I know, that he can go in his room awake and lay down and be able to fall asleep on his own. I don't know that I can give you all of the tips that you would need to be successful in this venue. Again, if you're interested in my plans, I think you were already listening earlier because you're here, so I won't go over those, but there are 2 different options. Do it yourself with my guidance and a complete, let me do it for you, almost. Because of the throwing up, my bet is that there's a lot of anxiety for you as a mom, and your husband, that he's going to throw up, he's going to be hungry, he's, what if something bad happens because he's throwing up? And so I work a lot with my clients to work through their personal anxieties so that they can be successful in sleep training. And again, you don't have to do Cry It Out. Like, if that doesn't work for him and it doesn't work for you, that's fine. We can talk about other methods of maybe it's best to do checks. Maybe it's best to do the pick up, put down. Maybe it's best to do, the chair method where you're in the room with him. And you talked about that, putting your hands through and rubbing his head. And that's like a step towards sleep training, right? That's more of a gentle method where you're slowly weaning yourself off. So if that's how he's falling asleep at the beginning of the night, again, put him to sleep awake and see if he can fall asleep on his own awake. And then I would adjust his schedule a little bit, and that might help with night wakings as well. But yeah, there is a way around the throwing up. We can't use that as an excuse. We have to figure out a way to work through that. Okay, so if you guys are interested in any of these plans and having my help, I do offer a free 15-minute call to talk about my packages and what would fit you best, to see if this is a good fit for you. So if you're interested in that, you're welcome to just PM me after, and I can send you the link to sign up for that. Okay, let's go to Holly. Sorry, I'm looking at the time so that I can write my outline after. Okay, and I'm seeing a lot of comments. Let me go look at this really quick before we run up to Holly. So Jamie, when do you ask for questions? I have some about bedtime. So Jamie, I asked for questions the day before. So on Mondays, I'll always post and ask for questions for my Tuesday lives. So then I answer them in the order that they're received. If I have time, I can answer questions that are left as a comment here, but sometimes I do. I probably won't today. And then, oh no, a 4-year-old. Waking up, that's hard. Okay. Brianna says, I laid him down at 7:30 tonight and can hear him playing in his crib still. Okay. Yeah, he's probably getting too much daytime sleep. Even if his naps are short, those 3 naps are going to disrupt sleep. So we want to do like maybe a 9:30 and like 2:30 nap or something, and then that's it. Okay, sorry. So let's go over to Holly. And she says, my youngest turned 2 in October. He sleeps in his own room, but will not sleep through the night and will not fall asleep on his own. Okay, we have to sit in the room with him while he falls asleep. He usually wakes up after a few hours and crawls into bed with my husband and I, and sometimes without me even noticing. But you do notice eventually, and then you don't sleep as well. I'd love some tips for helping him fall asleep on his own and getting him to sleep through the night. He was sleeping through the night before we moved about 8 months, but moving really messed with his sleep. Okay, so I don't know exactly what his schedule is at 2 years old, and he might be going through a nap regression, so that's something to keep in mind. if you're sitting in his room with him right now, what I would do is slowly wean yourselves off. So every 3 or 4 nights, I would just sit where he's falling asleep, one spot closer to the door. And that if he gets upset because you're not sitting close, just tell him, like, tonight I'm sitting here, this is where I'm sitting. You can have me sit here or I can leave. And sit in that one spot and don't budge from that spot. He's gonna resist and not want you to be so far away, you know, one step away, but he's not gonna want that. But be consistent and stay right there. And then when he's used to that, so 3 to 4 days later, you can take one step closer to the door. Again, I don't know what his schedule looks like, so that may be also not helping with naps, and a move can be hard as well. But the more consistent we can be and the more trust that we can give to our children to say, hey, this is hard and I'm here for you, but I know you can do it, the more likely they're going to adjust more smoothly and trust themselves, right? What kind of a message are we sending as parents when we're constantly there fixing everything for them and not giving them the space to fix it for themselves? We're telling them, I don't think you can do this. And the truth is, we do think they can do that. It's our own anxiety and our own fears that are getting in the way. So let's make sure we're sending them the right message. And that's not necessarily to you, Holly. Sorry, I went off on like a soapbox of what I see a lot. Oh, and you're saying he takes one nap around 1 p.m. and goes to bed around 8 p.m. And he's 2 years old. That's not bad. I might consider, because he's waking up a few hours after he goes to sleep, I'd consider moving bedtime a little bit earlier. Even 15 minutes can make a difference, but even 30 minutes to an hour may be necessary. Yes. Okay, so let's go to Esther. Esther Pig. I don't know how to say names, guys. Okay, let's go to Esther. And she says, my child is 18 months and hasn't slept longer than 2 hours since she was about 3 months old. Oh my goodness. I don't know how you're doing it, Esther. She wakes up around 7:30 a.m., sometimes has a nap around 10:30 for 30 minutes, usually in my arms if she falls asleep while nursing or in the car. Used to be daily, but now maybe 1 to 2 times a week. Okay, naps in the afternoon from 1:30 to 4. Okay, so at this age, I don't even know what's going on later, but 18 months is usually when I say, okay, it's time to go down to 1 nap. So I would just eliminate that first nap, and I would see if she can hold out till at least 11:30. You can put her down for a long nap, or if you can get her to go later, sometime between 12 and 1 would be ideal for a 1 nap. I rock her and sing a song and put her to bed awake. She sometimes cries for 30 seconds, but usually doesn't complain. About 60 to 90 minutes into the nap, she will wake up and cry for about 1 minute and then fall asleep. Okay, so that's fine. That's just, it's just a, what's it called? Sleep transition that she's going through, and she's kind of stirring and then going back to sleep. So that's not anything to worry about. Bedtime is between 8 and 8:30. Bedtime, she nurses, has some stories, read for a few songs, and put to bed awake. Okay, so that's good that she's getting to bed awake. During the night, she wakes up every 1 to 2 hours to nurse. She is currently in our room because she doesn't sleep at night, and we didn't want to move her into her sister's room. When she wakes up, she stands in her crib and cries and calls out Mommy and Daddy until someone gets her. She won't stop screaming unless I come. Okay, I'm going to challenge you on that, because I bet she would stop screaming eventually, but we haven't waited long enough, right? But I get that she won't stop for a long time and that we end up going in. I totally get that. I do that. She then nurses for 1 to 5 minutes and usually falls asleep while eating. She doesn't take a pacifier or a bottle, but has a cuddle toy and blanket in her crib. The past 10 days, we have been staying with family and with the baby in the room with her older sister, and she still woke up every few hours. The biggest challenge is waking up every 1 to 2 hours all night long. I don't mind night feeding, but a longer stretch would be nice. Thank you. Okay, so there's a couple ways to do this. She's falling asleep on her own, which is good. Like I said, I would adjust her schedule, and then with a 1 nap schedule, you may need to do an earlier bedtime, like closer to 7, 6:30, depending on how long that nap is and if she can keep the length on it or what. So adjust her schedule. I would take her down to 1 nap, and then at night, I don't know how many calories she's getting at night, but normally at this age, she should be sleeping through the night. And so my worry is that she's used to getting so many calories at night, and then she probably doesn't get as much during the day. So it's kind of opposite, right? And so there's a couple ways that you can do this. I mean, if you're comfortable with it, you can cry it out and not feed her at night, and she'll be hungry, and then the next day she'll eat really well. Or you can do like a slower method where maybe you're trying to drop one feeding at a time. And I'd be happy to work with you to figure out which feeding we need to drop and what's the method we're dropping that. Are we pushing the feeding back by a certain amount of time, waiting 15 minutes longer to go in, or longer than that, right? Am I having a cutoff time? There's a bunch of different ways you can do that. It doesn't sound like she's nursing for very long. So maybe it's not an eating thing, and maybe it's just a comfort thing. And some babies are just going to continue to wake until we say, no, we're not, I'm not going to give you this anymore. And so there's other things you can do. Get her out of her bed and go give her a sip of water, and then go put her back in her bed, do the bedtime routine, and put her back to bed. But if you continue nursing her at night, she will continue waking at night. And so, yeah. Hopefully that helps. You've got to either spread the feedings out or limit how much you're feeding her in order to get her there. You can do it slow or fast. Okay, let's go to Ashley Torres. And she says, I think Ashley's here with us. My sweet baby boy. Oh, and Holly, I didn't see your comment, or did I? 1 p.m.? Maybe I did. I can't remember now. Okay, Ashley. My sweet baby boy is 10 months old today. He wakes up pretty frequently during the night. We put him down around 8 p.m. and he will wake up crying and won't stop until we either feed him a bottle or rock him to sleep. His dad has a crazy fast metabolism, and he will literally wake up in the night starving and can't go to sleep without getting something to eat. I can't help but wonder if that's what is going on too. Anyway, he takes 2 naps a day, lasting anywhere between 45 minutes and 2 hours. We are so tired. Okay, so my question for you, Ashley, is, or maybe you're telling me this. We put him down for bed at 8. He wakes up around midnight, 3 and 5, and goes back down until 8. He naps from 10:30 and then around 2:30. He seems exhausted around 7. That's when we start a nighttime routine. So I would try putting him to bed earlier. Yeah. I would try putting him to bed earlier if he seems exhausted. Let's get him to bed earlier. And then I don't know actually how he's falling asleep. So if you were listening earlier, I talked a little bit about what sleep training is, and the whole idea is that when we put our child to bed, the reason we're putting them to bed awake and in their crib so that they can fall asleep on their own is because they will transition through sleep cycles all night long. And when they get to those light sleep places, light sleep cycles, they will wake up completely. And if they don't know how to fall back asleep on their own, that is when they will say, cry out and need mom. And it can be as bad as every 45 minutes. So luckily we're not quite there, but, 3 times a night at 10 months when he could potentially be sleeping through the night is a lot. So that's why we're sleep training. We're not sleep training to make them cry all night long or not feed them at night. Like, if you want to keep a feeding for him, let's keep a feeding for him. That's fine. But let's teach him how to fall asleep at the beginning of the night. Now, actually, I don't know how he's falling asleep, so I can't say if this applies to you or not, but that would be step 1, is getting him to fall asleep on his own at the beginning of the night. And then hopefully that will drop feedings naturally, but you may have to do some work there as well. And if he's so tired, put him to bed earlier, because if he's going to bed too late, it will increase those night wakings in the middle of the night. Okay, Megan. We have struggled off and on with, she has a 2-year-old, not sleeping very late in the morning. Okay, I've noticed it happening when she's cutting a tooth. Without fail, she's cutting a tooth, she would be up for the day about 4 a.m. Well, she's cutting a tooth again, but it's been months, so it's probably not the issue. Cutting a tooth really only lasts a couple days. They say like 2 to 3 days. We brought home a new baby about 3 weeks ago, and since that time, she hasn't slept past 6:30. Okay, so just as part of information, it doesn't mean this is always the case, but 6 to 8 a.m. is a normal wake time for a baby, so keep that in mind. Usually waking between 4 and 5:30. When she wakes up that early, I just try to keep her up till about 10, and then she takes a nap for about 1.5 to 3 hours. Okay. Okay, so when she wakes up that early, you'll keep her up until 10 a.m. and then she'll take a nap. Okay, if she sleeps till 6:37, like I would like her to, she takes a nap. Oh, good. So you're okay with her waking up at 6:37. Good. Great. It's the 4 a.m. that you're not okay with. I agree. I'm not okay with that either. Like I would like her to, she takes a nap at noon for about 2 to 3 hours. Okay. It's good. We always put her to bed at 8 without fail. Okay, so if she wakes up at 4 and you give her a nap at 10, you still put her to bed at 8 because that's really late to me and I'd want to put her to bed at like 6. Sometime between 6 and 7. I sing her a few songs and then she puts herself to sleep. She does seem to toss and turn at night, sometimes yelling out and briefly crying. Yeah, she's going to bed too late. She doesn't seem to have a very restful sleep. I hope that is good info. Yeah, so she's going to bed too late. The best thing you can do is keep her in her room until 6, even if she's waking up at 4, so that she's at least still getting that melatonin from the darkness. And then do your best to keep naps until noon. I realize it's going to be hard, but shoot for closer to like 11, 11:30. And then when bedtime comes, she needs to be going to bed earlier. So you said her nap is from what time? Noon for 2 to 3 hours. Yeah, so I'd put her to bed at 7. Between 6 and 7. And see how she does. She's still sleeping in a crib. That's good. I wouldn't move. You said you plan on moving her. I don't recommend moving until it's close to 3 as possible. She's a little young and her impulse control is fairly low at this age. So she'll probably wind up getting out a lot. Again, you know your child best. But I would wait if you can a little bit longer. We have a snack before bed and a set breakfast time at 7 a.m. Yeah, that can help for sure. But yeah, she's just not getting enough sleep. So, yeah. So thanks so much for joining me, you guys. I think that was my last question today. I'll go back and read the comments here and comment and answer them. Again, look for my blog post tomorrow all about sickness and sleep, how to keep your sleep intact when you're going through illness and sickness this winter. Some great tips on there. And then if you're interested in having some more information and working one-on-one, I would love to work with you. PM me. And again, I offer a free 15-minute phone call where we can talk about my packages so that you can get the right package for you. And as I mentioned with some of these, I have my sleep training packages all set to go. If you're dealing with a specific problem like there was a lot of, toddlers who are waking at night, but they're going to sleep on their own. They don't necessarily need to be sleep trained because they're falling asleep on their own, but we need to iron out those night waking. So that would be just a separate plan that we can customize for your needs, depending on how much help you want from me and what that would look like. So feel free to reach out and I can talk about what your needs are, and then we can get you a quote to really get the help that you need and get your baby sleeping better. Or your toddler sleeping better, right? Toddlers are the hardest, I feel like. Please share this with your friends. If this was a helpful video, if you learned something that was new to you, if you got some helpful information, share my page or share this video or whatever so that your friends, other sleepless moms can have this resource and get the help that they need. And if you have any further questions, you're welcome to post next week. Or submit a question for next week. And you can do that as soon as you'd like. And what else? Anything else? Yeah, thanks so much, you guys, for tuning in. And I can't wait to do this again next week. So thanks so much, you guys. Have a good night, and I will see you later. Thanks.